Hi, everyone. I am so excited. You are not going to believe who's here with me right now. This is Adam Tratt. Do you want to know who he is? He is the guy who created Haiku Deck. Now, I know you've all heard me talk about it, rave about it, brag about it, plead with you to use this platform or this tool. But I'm just here to tell you that we've got the guy, and I'm so excited to share his story and share some tips and tools with the Haiku Deck product. And I couldn't be more thrilled that he's with us today on our Brand Crush interview series. So welcome, Adam.
Thank you so much, Kelly. It's such an honor to be here. And thank you so much for your enthusiasm and your advocacy for Haiku Deck. We're so lucky to have people like you in our community.
Well, and I have to say, I'm a brand snob, and I think we've talked about this. You and I have had a couple of email correspondences back and forth, and I think I was born to do this work, the work that I do. And even as a young girl, I recognize the value of brand and how powerful things can be when they are perceived a certain way. And I think that visual and verbal tied together is the magic formula. And you've created this alternative, this presentation alternative that I'm telling you has completely changed, first of all, how I project on stage, right? Because you aren't reliant on copy. You only give us 2 lines of copy. So it's right. So it's very image heavy, and you have to know your content, but it's so highly visual if it's done correctly that it has such a huge wow factor. I win on stage 100% of the time.
That's great to hear. That's exactly what we set out to do when we built the app. And I think fundamentally what we realized as entrepreneurs, and by the way, you give me a little too much credit, because though I am the face of Haiku Deck today, my co-founder Kevin is actually the guy who came up with the idea. And we came up with the idea in this moment of struggle where there were originally 3 co-founders in our company. We had started out doing celebrity-based Facebook games in the era of Farmville back in 2010.
Yes.
And we failed miserably. We launched, we struggled to find a celebrity that would work with us. And then we finally found one, and we launched our game, which was a great little game, but nobody wanted to play it. And our 3rd co-founder, who happened to be our designer, left. And when he left, we faced this moment, Kevin and I, my other co-founder, faced this moment where we had to go back to our investors, and we had to shore up their confidence in us and tell them, hey, here's what we did, and here's what we tried, and here's what we're going to do next. And we were faced with this moment where we had to create the presentation, the deck. And the future of our company hinged upon this one presentation. And we started to bicker with each other about who was going to make the slides. And it was in that moment of bickering that we started to ask some really poignant questions of one another. Now, the truth is that the best part of being an entrepreneur is sharing your dream, telling your story, getting people excited about the thing that you want to do. And here we were working on that story, and we were fighting with each other, because that process of sitting down and trying to design a presentation that's compelling when you're not a designer is a soul-sucking and horrifying and bad experience. And so it was in that moment of truth where we kind of had this spark that was, oh wait, well, why is this? Why is it that here we are? This is the primary medium that entrepreneurs and teachers and lawyers, professionals, everybody uses presentations to communicate. Why is the process so dreadful? And so we set out to make that better. And part of what we saw when we looked at the market is that there weren't a lot of brands in our category that have much soul, that inject creativity into the process of sharing an idea or telling a story. So that's exactly what we set out to do.
Wow. And I didn't even know that. That's so cool.
It was scary at the time. It worked out well, for us, or it is working out well for us. It's been a very long journey. This was back in 2010 when we were, actually 2011 when we started to fail the first time. And it was 3 pivots after the first failure that we were about to give up. And when we made that deck that day, there were 3 options. One was, please, investors, just take your money back. And 2 was, here's, what it would look like if we keep down on this path of celebrity-based Facebook games. And, oh, here's this crazy idea that you're probably not going to go for. And that crazy idea was Haiku Deck. And at the time, our investors were, they sort of turned it around on us and they said, well, what do you guys want to do? And we said, oh, we want to change the world here. The world doesn't need more celebrity Facebook games. The world needs better tools for telling stories and inspiring movements. And that's what we set out to do.
Oh my gosh, I think I'm more in love than I was when we found this call. You know that I am one of your biggest fans. Like it's almost embarrassing because when you stumble across something like a tool, and in my world, your resources are everything, right? And to stumble across something that you think is going to do so much heavy lifting for you, which it did for me. I mean, I just couldn't contain myself. Like I reached out to you guys right away. It was just like, I just want you to know how awesome I think you are. And so
we remember that. I mean, that was like, you have no idea how valuable that is when you're an early stage entrepreneur and you're just thinking like, is anybody out there going to care about my idea? I mean, it's the moment that I think about, the metaphor that comes to mind is that moment in Jerry Maguire where he writes his memo and he puts it in everybody's mailboxes and then waits for people to care, and nobody cares. So you caught us at a good moment, Kelly. We'll never forget that.
Oh, so I'm glad. No, I'm very glad. I'm glad that you hung in there. And that's going to be part of what I hope that you feel comfortable sharing, because I know that a lot of my students and our viewers and our listeners really struggle. A lot of times they're in influx, they fail, they fall down, they get up, dust themselves off. They're like, why am I going through this brain damage? Is it even worth it? Should I persevere? And I think that hearing the stories similar to yours, I would imagine, is that it's not all, roses and unicorns.
Oh, on the contrary. I mean, our story has been zombies and pitchforks the whole time. I mean, we're still scraping by, like this has been an incredible entrepreneurial journey for us. And we have had, moments of great victory, but you never stop running from the zombies. I mean, it's relentless. And I think the thing that I often say when I speak to groups, entrepreneurs, and when I coach entrepreneurs, is I tell them, if there's one thing that you need to get comfortable with as an entrepreneur, it's discomfort. It's this constant low-grade fever, this constant sense that even though we had a good day yesterday, we're still worried about where our next meal is coming from tomorrow.
Yeah.
There are very few companies that just ever really, hit the hockey stick when they think they're going to hit the hockey stick in their growth curve.
That's true.
And
there's a lot of whiplash.
Absolutely. Yes, exactly. If you're lucky, I mean, because the whiplash implies that you get those moments of fast acceleration only to, hit the wall. And we've had that throughout. It's been a really interesting, challenge for us, series of challenges.
Wow. Well, okay. So with regard to sort of the journey that you were on, right, where you thought you were going down one path and there were these several pivots and then you wound up here, would you say in this moment that you have found your passion and you've actually applied it to work? Because so often people struggle with, why was I put on this earth? Am I living my passion? You look at the millennials and even the younger generation, is that these folks struggle with purpose and, really identifying it and then, living it out. And so many of my mentors have said to the people that I teach, they'll say, you have to have a passion. If you don't, you're kind of screwed. So would you say that you're living it, you and your business partner are living it through Haiku Deck?
Yeah, but it's not like we woke up one morning and I realized this was the thing for me. I think what I realized at a young age is that I really like being an entrepreneur. I do love public speaking, and I love sharing our story. And that's something that I think, sharing a story, something that I do, I wouldn't call it a superpower, but I do it better than many. But it wasn't obvious to me the moment that Kevin said, hey, we should try and reinvent PowerPoint. My reaction wasn't like, oh, that's my lifelong dream. my reaction was actually like, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. Are you kidding me? Nobody takes on Microsoft and wins. Like, you know, I used to work at Microsoft. That was my first job out of college, was as a product manager on the Office team at Microsoft. So I know that the path to entrepreneurial success does not generally pass through a heavily entrenched product that 500 million people use. But now that we're in it, it turns out that I am quite passionate about this. And I think part of what fuels my passion is the reaction we get from members of our community like you. I mean, it makes my day to know that there's at least one person in the world, Kelly, who thinks as highly of the work that we've done as you do. And
I'm a tough critic, just so you
I
know.
know. But I mean, you know, luckily for us, we get a lot of positive feedback. We also get a lot of negative feedback too. I mean, we built, one of the interesting things about Haiku Deck is that, you know, there's our category, presentation software, is a relatively crowded category. There's PowerPoint that almost everybody uses.
Sure.
And then there's a few other big players. And then there's probably 20 PowerPoint lookalikes on every platform you can imagine, from iOS to Android to the web to whatever, you name it, Unix. And what's different about Haiku Deck is that we have an opinion about what your presentation should look like. We built the product on this idea that presentations, you know, we wanted to make it 5 times or 10 times faster and easier for people to create presentations that are 10 times better. And the way we do that is by productizing the best practices in presentation creation. So we went out and did a bunch of research, and we found that there's 4 things that all the presentation experts tend to agree on. They are: put one idea up on the screen at a time, use consistent formatting. If you're going to use a chart, for the love of God, a simple chart, and reinforce every idea with a very powerful photo. And those are sort of the principles of our app. And so we make it really hard to create an ugly presentation, because we force users into this relatively tight box. Some users don't like being in a box. Some users want to load up their slides with 8-point font. And even though the slide is going to look terrible and violate all the conventions that all of the scientists and psychologists and presentation experts say proves that you're not supposed to do that, they want to do that, and they get into Haiku Deck and they're like, this is crazy. Why would I ever use this app? But for some people who get it, we've made their life a whole lot easier.
Oh my gosh, to say the least. I want to just show people who aren't familiar. I'm sure they're going, Haiku Deck, what is that? So I have one of my presentations teed up here, and I wanted to show everybody how cool it is. Now, I actually have this on an iPad. I present off an iPad, and I either build on the road on my iPad, because that's how easy it is, or I'll do it on my desktop. And it is so turnkey. I mean, what I love about it is what people need to understand is this is so easy. Everything leads with an image, and then we overlay sound bites. I call them sound bites. They're memory points. They're the shock and awe, you know. And I have built beautiful presentations. As a matter of fact, people, my clients, have paid me to build them their Haiku decks.
Great. That's outstanding.
Right? I mean, because a lot of people don't want to try and figure it out. But what I always tell them is there is not a simpler product out there, in my opinion. I mean, because PowerPoint, you have to make sure when you're dragging elements in that they line up, and, you know, there are rules on how things should lay out. This is way more intuitive than that, right? It's got kind of an Apple vibe. And I think that audiences are starved for entertainment. They don't want to be talked to per se. They want to be entertained. And I think that this platform not only enhances that for somebody, right? Because you've got all these visual elements behind you on the big screen, but it forces you to know your content. And I just very much have found that whether it's myself or my clients who are doing it, inevitably people afterwards will rush the stage and say, where did you get that? Where did you build that?
That's great to hear. I mean, that's fundamentally what we all want. Whether you're sitting down at a meeting with 3 people on your team, or whether you're standing up in front of a hotel ballroom filled with 2,000 people, um, ultimately we all want to look like we have an army of professionals supporting us, right?
Yeah.
We want to punch above our weight. And I think our insight when we started to do the research and started to design Haiku Deck, what we found is that everybody, people generally have a good idea of what they're going to, they've got a handle on their message, right? Professionals know what they're going to say. It's not always easy to get to that, but they don't expect software to solve that problem. Where they get tripped up is they start their process by sitting down in front of this blank canvas that overwhelms with options. And what we did is we limited the number of options. We forced the author to crystallize their ideas by limiting the number of words on the screen. We provide this powerful image search engine that brings back relevant images that are the right size and the right resolution. So you don't waste time fiddling with this resizing of the images or anything like that. And then we give you a handful of themes that make it look like a professional designer scrubbed your work. And then the other thing that you alluded to is that, we started out as an iPad app. Now we have an iPad, an iPhone, and a web-based apps, and they're all integrated. What we found is that sometimes creativity strikes when you're sitting at your desk, but a lot of the time it strikes when you're sitting in a comfy chair in your sunroom or at Starbucks. And so giving people the opportunity to be creative in a mobile sense and to be productive on the road is super helpful. Not to mention the fact that, sometimes you bump into a client in the parking lot and you want to pull out your iPhone and show them your work. And so that's something, by being mobile first, that's something that has really worked in our benefit for certain types of professionals, especially people in sales, people in marketing who tend to be out and about.
Right. Oh, exactly. Right. So how'd you come up with the name?
Well, we were trying to think of a metaphor that would work with this framework that we had created. And so fundamentally what Haiku Deck is it's a tool that aims to unlock your creativity by providing you with structure. And for those who remember their 4th grade English class where they learned about haiku poetry, I don't know if that was just a thing where I went to school, but haiku poetry, as you may recall, is a Japanese form of poetry that uses a very strict structure: 5 syllables, 7 syllables, 5 syllables. And through that strict structure, it allows the author to create something of beauty, even though they're incredibly constrained, in a way that's very different than if I sat you down and said, hey, Kelly, write a poem. You could write any kind of poem. Poems are free form, and it might overwhelm you with the options, right? But if I say write a poem that has 5 syllables, then 7, then 5, you're going to come out with something that's uniquely succinct, crisp, clear. And also there's a thing about haiku poetry, it tends to be about nature, about natural beauty. And so we thought that was a very apt metaphor for the product, which is all about helping people unlock their creativity by providing them with a tight framework, a strict set of constraints.
I love that.
Thanks.
That's cool, because a lot of people struggle with naming. Naming seems to be a lot of people's Achilles heel, because a lot of names show up arbitrarily, and oftentimes they can't get the .coms, and they certainly can't trademark them. Most of them don't make any sense, and with yours, it actually does. And I'd love to hear the story around your logo.
Well, we came up with this. So just by way of background, before I did Haiku Deck, I spent about 7 years working on a board game brand called Cranium. And that was
I don't know what that is.
You do or you don't?
I do.
Oh, great. So, the reason I bring that up is that I really cut my naming teeth at Cranium. You can imagine when you're working, we delivered over 100 different board games, books, and toys in dozens of markets around the world. And all of them were localized. So not only did we have to name the games globally, but then we had to name the activities within the games. And they all had, if you're familiar with the games, they all have goofy names and goofy activities. And that was, always a challenge. And I think when we set out to do an exercise, a branding exercise, we think about what are the attributes that we're trying to communicate. What are the beliefs? Was the belief system that we have as a company, as a brand, and how do we want to reflect that? How do we want to reflect that verbally and visually? And so we presented a brief to a local design agency. We're headquartered here in Seattle, and the brief was, it talked about how we are intending to be a challenger brand for the foreseeable future. We are going to be a challenger brand. In fact, we're always going to be a challenger brand because we are so opinionated about the presentation itself. So there was an element of, we are rebels, we are delivering something new and fresh. We want it to stand out from other productivity apps and other presentation apps. We wanted this sense of crispness and clarity, but we don't want it to be so far removed from the category that it feels like an alien, right? We wanted to feel like, the 1 in 100, this sort of, we wanted to feel like the black turtleneck in the sea of button-down shirts at an investment bank, right? Not the person who just landed, just invaded Earth from Mars. So we wrote up a brief.
Those brands.
We presented it to our agency, and it was an iterative process. It didn't, they didn't get it on the first try. We kind of struggled to get the font right, to get the visuals right, to get the colors right. But ultimately, it's been, one of the things that I think we've done really well is that our mark. I'm really proud of it.
No, I love it. And a lot of people, they try to do their own, right? And even one of the modules in Brand School, as well as chapter 4 of my book, is titled, "You're not a graphic designer, and neither is your cousin Sue." And what I tell people is, look, you're not a brain surgeon, so don't perform brain surgery, right? Mm-hmm. So when it comes to graphic design, actually creating from scratch these brand identity elements, I am really adamant about hiring somebody, right, mm-hmm. who knows what they're doing. And one of the tools in Brand School is a creative brief template so that people can specify what they're looking for, so that when they give it to a graphic designer, that they actually potentially will come back with concepts that are more on brand than off. Right.
And I think that's critical. And whenever you're working with any creative agent that's outside of your business, the better direction you put in, the better the higher the quality of the work you'll get out. And I think in speaking with other entrepreneurs and small business owners about this very topic, I find that a lot of the time when they're, what I hear is, well, I hired this person and all they brought back was garbage, and now what should I do? It's often a case of just poor expectation setting. So it's good to hear that you've got that brief. I'm sure that's super helpful for your community.
Well, and a lot of people don't even know what it is. Mm-hmm, and mm-hmm. What's really funny is I spend a lot of time educating people on just some context, just because they don't have the benefit of having been in any kind of a corporate environment that would have those internal resources, and maybe they were in a department that had no relevance to branding or marketing, and you don't know what you don't know, and so you only can move forward with the things you do know, right? I feel like with Brand School, my objective is to give people enough knowledge that they can make some decent business decisions for themselves that will impact their image, their voice, their promise, right? How they look, how they sound, how they feel. Because if they aren't dynamos in sales, what are they supposed to do? Right?
That's true. Yep.
Yeah. So I think you've really articulated well your brand's point of view. Do you have a business plan and a marketing plan? I mean, do you follow goals and objectives like a real organization, or do you go rogue and you just throw a bunch of spaghetti at the wall? Like,
No.
Okay.
We're super disciplined. We've always, I mean, marketing plans in general, I think, are somewhat overrated, especially for small businesses. So for us, we write down ideas of things that we want to experiment with, and we prioritize those experiments, and we try to run them in as lean a way as possible. So one of the things that we learned the hard way early on was, we spent too much time in the early days, even before Haiku Deck, spent too much time building things, waiting till they were, quote, ready, and then shipping them, and then expecting big results. We found that it's much more efficient, cost efficient, and time efficient to come up with small experiments that we can run quickly, measure, and then refine. So I've gotten out of the habit of sitting down in November to make my 2018 marketing plan the way I used to 20 years ago. Now what I do is I break it down into, what am I going to do this quarter? What am I going to do? I do have a very high level view of what I want to achieve in a year, but it's not very tactical. It's more like, okay, how are we going to get to X number of customers? How are we going to get to this revenue number? And then within that, all right, what are we going to do on the paid acquisition front? What are we going to do in the community front? What are we going to do in the word of mouth front and the viral front? And then we break that all the way down. At our company, every 2 weeks, we have what we call a sprint. And every member of the team sets out goals for that 2-week period. And at the end of the 2-week period, we take stock. What did we achieve? What didn't we achieve? What did we learn? And how are we going to adjust for the next 2-week sprint?
I love that. That's a great idea.
It's not mine. It's a sort of typical format for a lot of software startups, is using this lean methodology to run this sort of rhythm to your business.
Interesting.
And it helps keep you nimble.
I love that 2-week sprint. I'm gonna have to remember that. I'm gonna give that a run. Pardon the pun.
All right, I'll recommend some books. But there's some people do weekly sprints as well. Some people do monthly sprints, but we've just settled in at biweekly, or I don't know, is that biweekly?
Yeah.
Two weekly. Once every 2 weeks,
yeah.
Not twice a week.
I get that screwed up too. So you mentioned how you're going to wait getting the word out, right? Like with your marketing effort. How do you spread the word about Haiku Deck?
Well, that's been a challenge for us. I mean, like the thing that's worked really well for us is word of mouth. So thankfully we have lots of really enthusiastic fans like you who want to share the news about Haiku Deck with their communities. And so more than anything, just having a product that fills a need and providing excellent customer service so that our customers want to help us, that's far and away the number one thing that works for us. And that's something that is universal, delivering, like investing in having a great product experience and caring for your customers as you would want to be cared for yourself. That's critical. And it's frankly like the best ROI of any marketing program you could have. That's the first thing. Second thing is we try to amplify that through social media and community marketing. So we do what we can to support people, support their organizations. We keep a very close ear to Twitter and Facebook so that customers who are sharing their Haiku Decks through social media, that we help amplify them. We have a gallery of presentations. So millions of users and tens of millions of presentations that are all available on the web, and we feature decks that we think are great to help people build their own social footprint. A lot of our users are content marketers who really want to get the word out, tell their story online, and we provide a really nice tool for them to share that, not only through Twitter and Facebook, but Pinterest and Tumblr, you name it.
Right. I actually not only use Haiku Deck for my presentations, but I also did an About Me deck.
Oh, great.
which I borrowed from you guys because it was brilliant. And so on LinkedIn and on my website or whatever, I have created a visual resume, basically a history or story all about me. And of the people who have seen it, they're like, this is ingenious. I'm like, yeah, hello, this is the Haiku Deck crew. Like, seriously, it's brilliant. And the fact that you are so responsive, I have a very high expectation of when I'm working with a service provider, a very high expectation. And accidents happen, mistakes happen, links are down, whatever. But the fact that you guys are so responsive is a definite feather in your cap, because I will tell you that I've used Twitter as a vehicle to out companies who claim really great customer service and don't perform it. And I even have one in the Twin Cities where I live, where I was a gnat's rear end from driving over there to their corporate office because there was no way to reach anybody in their customer service unless you got the pro version. So unless you were, really, you bought their most expensive membership, which I just thought, oh no, no.
Yeah.
So I think that speaks volumes to you guys.
Thanks. It's important, right? Everybody wants to be treated like they matter, and like this is how you have to behave when you're in a crowded field and you're up against not an 800-pound gorilla, but an 8 million pound gorilla. In both Microsoft and Google and Apple all have competitive products, so we have to work hard, and we do.
That actually comes to the very next thing I want to ask you. Is I wanted to talk a little bit about competition, because my students and my clients and our viewers, they really struggle with competition. The category and the industry, there's a lot of people who say, well, I want to sell Rodan and Field, and the same product, same price if it's somebody else. And a lot of folks argue it's relational, right? Like this relationship, I'm better friends with you, therefore you're more inclined to buy the product from me. But I'm not convinced that's it, because I've got a lot of girlfriends who sell isogenics. And they will say, Kelly, it'll change your life, you'll blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, that's not going to convince me to buy your product. But if a friend comes to me and says, do you want to get in that size 4 suit that's hanging in your closet with the tag still on it? For your next presentation on stage, you might want to give it a whirl. And I won't even make you sign up. I'll just bring all the product over to your house. We'll shake it up. If you drink it and you like the taste, I'll leave it for you. Right? Like, it's a completely different experience. So with your competition, because they carve the path ahead of you, right? Like you just said, they are monster in size. How do you compete with that? Like what?
Right. I think it comes back to, one, having an opinion about what the presentation should look like. So if you look at every other presentation tool out there, with a couple exceptions, they're all the same. They're all trying to be PowerPoint. And look at Keynote, it's PowerPoint. I mean, it's a little different. Some people like it better than PowerPoint, but nobody wakes up in the morning excited to sit down in front of Keynote, or PowerPoint or Google Slides, or any of the other ones that you haven't heard of. Then there's this other juggernaut in our category called Prezi. They decided, their approach was PowerPoint. PowerPoint is bad, and the reason it's bad is it doesn't do enough. And so what they added was a 4th dimension to storytelling. So now, instead of you having to tell your story beginning to end, you can tell it forward, backwards, upside down, and diagonal, which it provides a fresh look, in the sense that you're zooming around. They have this animation schema where you zoom around. Some people like it. I personally, and a lot of people I've spoken with have told me that it adds a layer of complexity to the authoring process. And so their insight was, let's add this animation schema to make stories more interesting. That's how they did it. And then our approach was the exact opposite. It was, the problem with PowerPoint isn't that you can't do enough. And when I say PowerPoint, I mean generically all 20 of the PowerPoint. The problem with PowerPoint isn't that you can't do enough, it's that you can do too much. People are wasting time fiddling with fonts, fiddling with layouts, fiddling with images. Let's just give people a bare bones tool that makes good looking presentations in no time flat. So that's the first way we did it. Built a great product that people love. Second thing we did is we built it with the community at the center of the process. So if you think about the way most presentation tools work, you're siloed. So whether you work alone or whether you work in a large organization, the presentation that you create is private. It lives on your hard drive, and it really isn't, those products aren't designed to share your story with the world, right? Or with the people in your organization or people who have shared interests. Our app is cloud-based. So whether you create your presentation on the iPhone or whether you create it on the web, it is stored in the cloud. We have, as I mentioned, millions of decks that are publicly shared on the internet. So if you, Kelly, wanted to do a presentation about branding, you can search our gallery, find other people's decks about branding, and gain inspiration from that. You can even remix a deck that you find and improve upon it at your own. So the idea of I said it earlier, we want to make presentations 10 times faster and 10 times better. One way we make it faster and better is through this tool. Another way is by leveraging the power of the community, essentially open sourcing presentation content. And then the third way is, after 5 years of making presentations for people, we have a lot of data about what ideas match with what images. And we're using that data together with artificial intelligence to start to automate the process of creating presentations. So we have this technology that we call Haiku Deck Zuru. You can find it on our website. There's a little blue button that says Try Zuru. And with Zuru, you can take an outline that you wrote, or you can even enter in a Wikipedia topic. And Zuru will help to summarize the content, and then it will use data that we have to try and help you to match your idea with a relevant photo. And ultimately, in the course of 10 minutes, you can have a pretty decent looking presentation. It's not perfect. It works better in certain circumstances than others, depending on the topic or the starting material, whatever. But in most cases, it'll get you between 50 to 85% of the way done on your presentation in about 10 minutes.
I love that.
It's really cool. It's really cool. I don't want to oversell it because it doesn't work for every topic. The way it lives on our website is it's free to try, and then if you like the results, we ask you to subscribe or pay us to download your presentation. Or if you're a subscriber already, you get it for free. So as a subscriber, you can already use it. But when it works, it's like magic. And we're looking forward to bringing that forward. If we can have self-driving cars, we might as well have self-driving presentations, right?
Well, and that really brings up a good point, because when I'm working with my corporate clients, because part of what I do is also still rebrand corporations, I cringe every time I hear that they've got an intern running their social media. And what makes me nervous about that is that it requires judgment, right? Because social media either helps you or hurts you. It's happening in real time. And it's my personal opinion that you have to have impeccable judgment. I also think that follows through on creating your own presentations, because again, if you're not a graphic designer, if you're not a natural creative, you're kind of left to your own devices to make something visually and verbally appealing and something that will resonate. So isn't it awesome then that you now, Haiku Deck is the judgment, right? So it's like, we are now going to take that yuck piece away from you. You don't have to worry about it. We do it for you.
Mm-hmm. That's the idea. Yes. I mean, you can't always trust. You can't always trust the robot. I mean, it still requires human intervention. But yes, the more that we can do to remove friction from this otherwise kind of cumbersome process of making a good-looking presentation, the better off we all are, right? Nobody wants to spend their afternoon fiddling around with software.
No.
So that's where we're headed.
I just want people to understand that it is very tedious to put together presentation materials. And oh my gosh, Haiku Deck has been such a huge time saver and lifesaver for me in so many ways. And I mean, I'm not going to bore people by, blubbering about it more than I already have, but just the fact that it is so user-friendly, it is so turnkey, and it's super intuitive. And it's not that expensive. That's the thing. You have the free version, but even at the paid version, it's it's so minuscule. I mean, if you calculated your hourly rate working in a PowerPoint or another platform against what you would invest in time on yours, like it's not even a conversation.
You're hired.
Well,
thank you for saying that.
yeah, well, you know how I feel, right? That's why you're on my show.
You're the best.
So before we wrap, I want to ask you a couple of things. One, if you, knowing what you know now, if you were to go back and do it all over again, what would be the one thing you'd do different, if anything?
Ooh, that's tough. I think for us, one of the things that vexed us a lot in the early days, and this is, I don't know if this is, do you mean from a brand perspective or just in general?
I just want, if there's any golden nuggets that you can give my students, because I know there a lot of them struggle, right? They just struggle.
So I would say, like, I think a lot of people, they kind of lock themselves in a proverbial room and they polish their brand stone or their product stone until it shines perfectly and they can see their reflection perfectly in it. And then they bring it out into the world only to find that people don't care. Right? And so the thing the mistake that we made repeatedly in the early days, and this gets back, maybe I'll tell a story.
Okay.
So as I mentioned earlier, we started out doing celebrity-based Facebook games. So our hypothesis was Farmville at the time in 2010 was massive. There were 270 million people in the world playing it.
I remember my son loved it.
Yeah, it was the population of the United States minus Ohio. That's how many people were playing Farmville.
Are you serious?
Yes. And so we saw this new category and we're like, okay, there's all these celebrities that are on Facebook and Twitter and they have all these followers. If we slap their license onto a game like Farmville, we can partner with those celebrities and they'll drive users into the game. So it was sort of a no-brainer. Like, of course this is going to work. And so what we did is we went out, we raised a little bit of money. We then set out to find a celebrity. We struggled to find a celebrity. We finally found one celebrity who would work with us. It's a local celebrity here in Seattle, a rapper named Sir Mix-a-Lot. You know him?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, good. Not everybody knows Sir Mix-a-Lot.
I love your subtle little name drops. You are cool. You are super cool.
I'm not that cool. I'm not that cool. But Sir Mix-a-Lot is really cool. He's a great guy. He wanted to work with us because he's kind of a nerd at heart. He wants to learn about software and how it gets made. So he agreed to work with us. Nobody else would work with us. Now, we were thinking, this isn't the ideal celebrity for this particular idea because his demographic is a little bit different than the typical casual game player. But okay, we'll try it. If it can work for Sir Mix-a-Lot, then maybe we can go to Justin Bieber's people and do it with a more sort of here and now kind of celebrity. So anyway, then we set out to build the game for Sir Mix-a-Lot, and we built the game and we launched the game and we did a bunch of marketing around it, and we were covered on 40 of the top 50 NBC local news affiliates on the 5 o'clock news as sort of a public interest story. Jimmy Fallon talked about our game in his monologue. By all measures, this was a grand slam product launch. Everybody was talking about it for one day, right? Which is about all you can ask for, right? Like to burst onto the scene as a nobody. This was exactly what we had hoped for, was that the power of the celebrity association would get us kind of awareness for our game. And sure enough, Sir Mix-a-Lot, quadrupled the number of likes and followers he had in a day. But nobody really wanted to play the game. And then when we started to advertise the game to followers of Sir Mix-a-Lot and fans of 90s era hip hop and, all the things related to him, what we found is that it was just dead on arrival. And what was tragic about that learning was that we could have figured that out without ever having built the game. We could have run advertisements before launching the game and targeted the same people on Facebook saying, come play this Sir Mix-a-Lot game, and have it point to a page where they, it says coming soon. And in doing that, we would have saved ourselves a lot of time and money. I mean, over $100,000.
Wow.
Is what it took to build a game that nobody wanted to play. So that is an important lesson. I wish we had not polished that stone before going out into the world and talking to actual customers. So the one thing, if I had to pick one thing, it's
Mhm.
it's sort of, don't treat the idea in your head as so precious. Don't worry so much that someone's going to try and steal your big idea, because that's the least of your worries when you're trying to start something new and get out of the gates. The important thing is to talk to customers, find out what pain they have, figure out what you can do to solve that pain, and then build that. And when you address someone's pain, then they will react the way you're reacting to our product, which is, thank you so much. I've been waiting my whole life for this product. I can't wait to tell my friends. And
Yeah.
that is the marketing that works. Buying
Wow.
keywords on Google often doesn't work. Buying ads on Facebook sometimes works, but less and less it will work, because the market, like, we're all becoming immune. It's all noise.
Mhm.
So if you build something,
And time is so valuable,
mm-hmm.
right? Because there isn't enough of it. That if people only knew how much of a time saver your product was, they'd probably just do it for that alone.
Yeah, yes, I completely agree.
Okay, so just two more things. What advice would you give an early stage business or entrepreneur regarding their brand?
Um, you know, I do this a lot, and it really depends on what their product or service is. So for us, because we were in the business of graphic design and making people look good visually, and because we have a internet-based product, we had to apply greater weight to things like, what is our domain name going to be? Is it available? Do we like it? Is it relevant? Blah, blah, blah. We over invested in iterating on the graphic design and making sure we nailed that. I wouldn't give that same advice to someone who wants to be, a photographer in their local community, a wedding photographer. In fact, I just went through this. I have a friend who's starting she's an events photographer, and she needs a logo. I wouldn't recommend to her that she spend $1,000 on her logo. She doesn't need to, right? Because that's a different business. And she doesn't need to have a 5-letter domain name, because she's not doing her business on the internet. She's doing her business by, handing out her business card at birthday parties and, at cocktail parties and places where she meets potential clients. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure.
So it's definitely not one size fits all. I do think that you for a lot of companies like ours, having being able to have a good story behind your brand is important, right?
Yeah.
People don't remember what you told them. They remember how you made them feel. And with our brand, we want to make people feel empowered and creative and talented and articulate.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've invested heavily in trying to communicate that, both overtly and through the subtle tools like the actual mark.
Mm-hmm. I love
So,
that. I love that. So what's new or what's next for Haiku Deck?
well, for now, it's, I mentioned that Zuru thing that we've been working on, the artificial intelligence stuff. We're working on something that you might really like right now, which is we are working on a way to add audio to your Haiku Deck, so that you can create your slides and then record your narrated word along with your slides, and then export it as a video. We're finding that increasingly creating video assets is important to our customers, whether they're teachers or trainers or making webinar materials. So that's something that we think we can do really well.
That would be great, because it would probably be way easier than iMovie.
Yeah. Yes, and it's it's just part of the journey of, like, presentations used to be a thing. 25 years ago, presentations were on transparencies that you put on an overhead projector, and then PowerPoint came along, and presentations were on a projector on the wall of the conference room. And now presentations are something we share digitally. We look at them on our phone. We're putting them out on social media. We're embedding them in our blogs. So just finding new ways to make it faster and easier for people to communicate their idea sell their product, share the dream, build a movement, whatever it is that you do, we want to make it a lot easier to get the word out. So
I love it. I love it. Well, and that segues perfectly into a little gift that you
yeah. I wanted to offer your listeners a discount on Haiku Deck. So if you use the promo code Brand School, all caps, you can get a 15% discount off of Haiku Deck Pro yearly subscription. So I'd be delighted for all of your community to use it and to give Haiku Deck a try. And also send me your feedback. Once you sign up for Haiku Deck, you'll start getting all kinds of email from me. I apologize in advance, but it's how we roll. We respond, we reply, we read the emails that we get back. So send
I
an
know
email,
you
Adam at haikudeck.com.
Well, that is very generous. Adam, thank you so much for being so generous.
Oh, Kelly, thank you for everything. It's great to have you with us, and thank you for sharing our product with your people. It's an honor.
Well, and I appreciate you putting up with me because I think I'm a high maintenance.
No.
Well, Adam, thank you again for your time today. And I know that my viewers and my listeners really, really appreciate it. I'm convinced they're going to give Haiku Deck a try. I'm going to do what I can to spread the good word. And I will forever be a fan. So, that's
You're
just
the best. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. For more information about Haiku Deck, please go to haikudeck.com. And I will see you on the next interview. Want to learn more insider secrets on branding from the big name brands and learn how to make more money with your own brand? You'll find all of that and more inside my brand school. Just go to brandingformoolah.com and sign up.